anyone building a niche site should be aware of their metrics. I mean, how else can you optimize your site? That's why I'm diving deep into Ezoic Big Data Analytics today. It's one of the reasons I prefer Ezoic over other ad networks, because they give you so much data and also a lot of optimization tools. So let's look at how to use Big Data Analytics to optimize your site. There are many insights you can gather from the platform, and I'll give you the ones that I regularly use so you can add them to your routine too. Now, the first is the revenue overview. This is sort of the landing page of the platform when you first load it. It gives you your revenue from the last 30 days, something you'll probably want to check regularly so you know what to expect in your bank account. It gets more interesting if you adjust the time filter though to the last year or the last 365 days as it says in the dashboard, and set the metric shown to revenue monthly. Now this way you can really see the progress you're making, and that's one of the favorite things for me to look at each month. Now the overview gives you insights into the revenue, the percentage of new visits, average engaged time per visit, the average visit duration, the bounce rate, and all of these metrics you can plot on the graph as well. Now that's a lot of data, and depending on your goals you might have other metrics you want to follow, but I like to check the revenue, the ePMV, the bounce rate, and the average engaged time per visit regularly. This way I can quickly see if anything is going the wrong way with one of my sites. And I also like the annotation feature over here, which allows you to set a marker on the graph. Now if you've made any major changes and you want to track the metrics after that change, you can set the marker for the date you implemented the changes and always see it on the graph. Google Analytics has this feature as well, and I use it regularly on Ezoic too. Now this might give you insights if your changes that you made, if they were successful and if they changed the performance that you wanted to improve. And the next tab is the audience tab. I use this tool a lot, especially the audience by location, because I have a very international site. But even if you only target English-speaking languages, you still get a lot of data on US, UK, Australian and many other countries. For ads, the ePMV by country is amazing to know. The difference in ePMV for US and non-US traffic is astounding, for example. And this allows me to focus our informational content towards our US sites. And for our Dutch sites, we focus more on affiliate content. You can also see if visitors from other countries engage with your content more or less than US visitors. Next up is the navigation bounces. Well, this is an awesome report and one I haven't seen in other analytics tools. It looks at your pages and checks if people are leaving the page very quickly. Now a bounce is when a visitor lands on your site and immediately returns to the SERP. Now a navigational bounce also takes into account when a visitor clicks through to another page on your site. That counts as a navigational bounce, but not as a regular bounce. Now this report lets me see pages that I need to adjust to be more in line with what users might expect when they click over to a page. Or I might need to change some links to that page where it makes no sense to refer people to that other part of my site. Or rephrase the anchor text maybe a bit so they know what to expect and it's more congruent with the page's content. And the visit depth report, this is a pure ad rev report for me because I like the way it shows me how much I earn from each consecutive page view. For example, when someone clicks to go to a second page, that earns me another $3.72 of ePMV, and each page view after that as well. So the first page view is worth the most because of ad targeting. I think some advertisers want to reach people that visit my site, but once they've reached them, they might bid a little lower on the second page view, or not at all maybe on the second page view because they've already reached them. But after the first page, each page view after that is worth around the same. So this isn't a metric I check regularly, but it keeps my eye on the ball regarding what I need to do to get more revenue. So getting a person to click on a new page is almost as valuable to getting a completely new visitor. Now the landing pages report, this is really essential in any toolkit. This is the report I check most often. The revenue per landing page is the most valuable metric you can get as a publisher. But the ePMV per landing page is even more powerful. Now I can see which pages on my site have the highest ePMV. That way I know on what type of content to focus more for the highest revenue per visitor. First I create a filter on the amount of page views. I set it to 100 because this gives me the best results, and it filters out pages with only a few visitors, which could skew the metrics a bit because those visitors were high value targets for retargeting, for example. If a page only gets 2 views and the ePMV is 30, then that doesn't really give me much data to go on. But setting it to 100 leaves enough pages for me to give me a lot of insights, and this number could be more or less for you depending on the size of your site and the number of page views you get on average per article. And then I sort the data by ePMV from highest to lowest and check the results. When you look at the type of pages with a high ePMV, a pattern might emerge where you can see what type of content does really well with ad targeting and where brands are willing to pay more for an ad placement. Now that's the sort of content you should write more of. Now the page details, this report gives me insights into the amount of words on a page combined with the other metrics, and this can inform you about the best performing article length on your site. It shows me that article length does matter for RPM, but not nearly enough as the amount of extra effort it would cost to, well, add that extra content to every post. Now, RPM really starts to decline at sub 500 word articles, so I tend to stay away from those and only write about topics that could be larger than 600 words. So some people also ask questions that could be answered in below 500 words, but I tend to combine those in a slightly larger topic. Now you also notice Ezoic talks about RPM here instead of ePMV, and with the landing page report you can see the ePMV, and that's because ePMV is a metric for a whole site visit. It's how much you earn per 1,000 visits. ePMV stands for the earnings per milli visits, per 1,000 visits. And when someone lands on a particular page and then clicks on, that revenue can be attributed to the landing page because that's where they entered. And when analyzing a single page, you can't use ePMV because you're only looking at that single page, not the whole visit. That's because a person could have entered your site on that page, then it would be a landing page, but they could also have come to that page by clicking through from another page. So ePMV is the revenue for the whole visit, and RPM is the revenue for that one single page. Now, I think Ezoic is the only ad network that uses ePMV, and that's because they want to find a balance between how much ads you put on your site and the user experience. And looking at ePMV gives a clearer picture of how much you earn per visitor. So you might want to put a little less ads on the first page view in order to get a person to click to more pages, thus increasing the whole visitor ePMV. So the RPM per page might be less, but the ePMV as a whole could be a lot higher. Now the author metrics tab is also really good, and it's a cool report if you have several authors writing for your site under their own name or under a different pseudonym for each writer. I publish everything under my own name, so I can't really use this report, but I would have loved to have the data on how the articles per writer perform on my site. Now, engagement time or bounce rate per writer, for example, could indicate which writers gives you more engaging posts, so you can instruct others to write the same way. Now, I do like to use the landing pages tab more than the categories tab because it can give you a more granular insight into what type of pages perform well on your site, but you can always take a look at the categories on your site as well. I only use a few categories on my largest site, so this report isn't as detailed for me. And the more detailed categories you have with fewer posts in them, the more this report can inform you about the differences between these categories. But I do see that the buying guide articles tend to do much better in terms of revenue than other types of articles. And then the sites, well, this report lets you compare your sites next to each other, and it's helped me to determine where I need to put most of my efforts in. I really like the fact that Ezoic lets me see the data for all of my sites together on any of the reports, so you can combine all of your sites or filter on one particular site. When using Google Analytics, I can only see one site at a time. So even with my own Google Data Studio report, I can't blend them together. So Ezoic is the only way for me to look at all of my sites together. Now, having this data on my sites together, like the total page views on all of my sites, is a great asset that I use often. But comparing each of your sites to the others is also very useful to see where your efforts pay off the most. And the traffic source, this is a great report to check differences in ePMV or engagement rate. If you have a strategy that involves lots of different traffic sources like Pinterest or Facebook next to Google traffic, this report can show you where you should put most of your effort. Pinterest is a really high traffic source for me, for example, on my cooking site. Now the ad location, if you're optimizing your ad placements, or if you want to decide if all those ads at the top of the page are worth it from a UX standpoint, then the ad location report is the one to look at. I'm still considering removing ads in the header, but this data shows me that those ads are worth a lot, so I'm a bit scared to do that. I do think it's better for UX, but the yield is just too high. And the better names you give your placeholders, the better this report will look, of course, but the standard names like sidebar floating are already very informative, and you know exactly how much they bring in. Now, Humix is the last report I check often. Now, if you're into video publishing like I am, the Humix network is a great way to share your videos and earn more from them. I think I'll do a video on that as well. Now, the shared report is pretty cool because it lets you see which videos are performing well on the network. And this way you can create more videos like that. I found that the more broad the topics are, the better they perform because they can be shared across a lot of pages instead of just a very niche topic. And Humix isn't saturated with a lot of videos yet, so I think it's kind of the opposite strategy from what you would do on YouTube. Just make as broad a video as possible and then share it on the Humix network. That still works very well. Now, some things to check once in a while. I don't really check these regularly unless I'm working on solving a particular problem I have on my site, but it's good to check these from time to time. The site speed and especially the request timing report over time, which shows you if there are any issues with your pages loading so you can intervene in time. The core web vitals to check if you're on par. Well, I actually use the Search Console report for this because I think that's a lot better, but I have had a cumulative layout shift issue in the past, and this Ezoic report lets me see the data per page, so I could find out what type of content caused the issues and I could fix that. Now, the caching report is also very important, and you can clearly see the difference in loading time between a cache hit or a miss, and that's why Ezoic Leap and the Ezoic Cloud are so important to use, because they really help you keep that loading time low. And that's the other part of why I use Ezoic, because they give you all this data, but they also help you with your site speed and other features like testing your titles. I did a video on that a while back. Now, you need to keep the cache hits high, and checking this every now and then is just good practice to see if there's anything wrong with your site. Now, I hope you like these in-depth videos, and also check out this video to see how I use the SEO tag tester from Ezoic to test my titles and increase my traffic by 19% just by testing some titles. Check it out.